Hi everyone, my name's Rory. I've been working on this project for a while. I'm a photographer and nature enthusiast in the Pacific Northwest. I've always dreamed of documenting the seasonal changes and telling the story here on YouTube. In a perfect world, I'd own 40 acres of diverse habitat where I can monitor the land right out my back door and bring you along for the ride. With housing prices in this area, I may have to wait a bit until that happens. In the meantime, I figured it was better to start now than keep waiting for the future. Although I live in a city, I'm lucky to have a lot of natural spaces close by. One spot in particular stands out. It has a shady conifer forest, open woodlands, shrubby areas, wetlands, and a pond in the middle of it all. My plan is to document what I see, both the plant and the animal life, and how the ecosystem as a whole goes through its yearly ebbs and flows. It's early winter here at my local pond, the darkest and coldest time of year. The leaves fell months ago, and remnants of last year's growing season are all but gone. I've learned to appreciate how slow and calm this time of year is. While the days are short, they can be very pleasant. When the sun breaks through, it's never too harsh. Even in the middle of the day, shadows are long and the light has a soft golden quality to it. Winters are mild here. Occasionally we get a snowstorm, but not very often. Most of the time it's gray and drizzly, usually in the 30s or 40s. I'd love to be in a place that has a more distinct winter season, but when we do get some wintry weather, it makes me appreciate it more. This year we are in an El Niño weather pattern, meaning it's warmer and drier than normal. There are exceptions though. During the middle of January we got a blast of Arctic air. Temps got down to 5 degrees and stayed below freezing for about a week. The pond froze over, with ice thick enough to skate on, a rarity here in the Pacific Northwest. As the weather was warming back up, we got a fair amount of snow, roughly 8 inches. It took a while to melt, and the pond stayed frozen for weeks. Eventually the warm rains came in and turned it all to slush. I think a few birds were happy with the puddles it created. The weather kept warming, reaching nearly 70 degrees, pretty unusual for the normally mild Pacific Northwest. A swing of about 65 degrees in a few weeks. That has to be some sort of record for January. This will likely be the only snow we get this year. That's okay though. I'm happy we got a few weeks of true winter. The snow feels like a blank slate, turning over from one year to the next. There's not much to see this time of year for plant life. There's a few snowberries. I've read that birds eat these berries in the winter, but I've never seen it. Upon closer inspection, they're filled with a foamy insulation of sorts and a few small seeds. I can see why they're not the wildlife's first choice. Rose hips from Nootka roses are still around, but other than that and the evergreens, there's not a lot to see right now. Anything growing along the margins of trails and roads is likely an invasive weed or a grass. There's one animal that comes here specifically for our mild winters, and that's waterbirds. Most of the year we only see mallards at the pond, but winter brings hooded mergansers, gadwalls, and buffleheads. It's nice to see some new and unique species in a time of year that is otherwise pretty quiet and unchanging. A walk through the woods reveals a handful of other winter residents. Amongst the ferns and underbrush is the spotted towhee, song sparrow, and Pacific wren. The latter is a small brown bird that makes up for its small size with its big voice. Higher up in the shrubs and trees are flocks of chickadees, both black-capped and chestnut-backed, and golden-crowned kinglets. A tiny fluffball-like bird, barely bigger than a hummingbird. It feeds constantly throughout the day to keep warm and store enough fat for nighttime, finding tiny insects such as mites and spiders, as well as insect eggs. They winter in places much colder than here, in temps -30 and lower, huddling together at night for warmth, an impressive little bird in these northern climates. If you pay close enough attention, you can find brown creepers, small brown birds that climb up the bark of trees. They camouflage so well that even when you hear them, they are difficult to see. Some larger birds in the area include the varied thrush, a robin-like bird that usually spends its time in the treetops. It comes down low to feed during winter. Steller's jays are always around, as well as ravens that occasionally fly overhead. This time of year is not the most exciting, but it is definitely peaceful. It won't be long until green shoots start emerging from the leaf litter, flowers start blooming, and the insects wake up from their hibernation. In fact, we heard the first chickadee sing in late January. Won't be long until spring is in full swing. Check back in March or April for an update.